Hello. In this tutorial, we will learn how to start a submitter spreadsheet. This is a help page. Again, by clicking help button on the menu bar and then hitting data submission, we can find this particular tab which says submission by AppScript. Once we hit this button, we will find all the instructions to do the same. We are going to first start with this link out. So this is the repository from where you will start your Google spreadsheet. Here is the link for the same. Once you click this, you will reach a spreadsheet which exactly looks like this. This is a view-only spreadsheet, and we are not supposed to change anything over here. What we will do is we will instead make a copy, and we will say we want it in our drive. I would usually like to name it specifically in a way that will remind me of the date at which that was started. So in this case, I'll say September 17, 2024, IGVF metadata submitter sheet and hit make a copy. Once the copy is populated, we can start looking at the different components of this. Here we see there's a help menu bar. We have to wait a couple minutes to see another menu item, which says IGVF v0.3.3. As we can see, it popped up after a few seconds. That's absolutely normal, and we have to wait that much. I will leave this first README sheet all by itself, and I'll start with the second sheet. It's not absolutely required to do it this way, but I prefer to start from the next sheet anyways. What I will do is I will first authorize this spreadsheet by clicking the Authorize for IGVF button. Note that when you start a spreadsheet fresh, for the first time, you will have to do this step twice. First step, when we hit OK, it's the Google that's first going to check if you are authorizing this account to run the script that's behind the scenes. And once I hit that, I need to say allow, and that step is done. In the next step, what I will do is again authorize it for IGVF. In this step, I'm going to use my secret key and access key to start the submission process. For example, you are in your sandbox environment and you want to know what your secret key and access keys are. So what I will do is I'll go hit profile. And even though I see that I have already created this, I can try to reset, because every time if I've forgotten, for instance, I can just reset it and get new keys. But if you are a first-time user, you can hit this create access key button and you will get a pair of access key and secret key. For now, let's see what happens when I say reset. So here I have gotten a new pair of key and secret key. I'll just copy first the access key and paste it right here, hit OK. And now it asks me for my secret key. I will again copy the same and paste it here and hit OK. Once we have populated the authorization part, next we will say what endpoint. Here the endpoint means which server you would like to start the submission in. Here we have three options. One is sandbox, one is staging, and one is the data production. You are probably not going to use this at all. This is only for Wranglers, so you can ignore this part. But let's say, for example, right now I want to start something on the sandbox. I'll just copy this exactly right here and hit OK. Okay, so once it says finish script, I can start working on it. The next is I want to set a profile name. So when I say a profile name, I'm basically trying to say what object I would like to create. Let's say we want to start creating a curated set, for example. So I'll say curated set. And as you can see in the example, you can specify this in two ways. One is the camel case and the other is the snake case. I have used the snake case right now and I will hit OK. Once the script runs successfully behind the scenes, you will start seeing all these columns populated automatically. These are also color coded. So the color codes can give you a glimpse of what types of properties are absolutely required versus what type of properties are optional. In the case of blue fonts, these are identifying properties. So these properties, especially accession and UUID, will be automatically generated for you. You do not need to fill these columns. The aliases column is an optional column. I would highly recommend using this as it's a very useful property to track your different lab-related analogies of the object that you are trying to create. For the aliases, we can see that the example is listed exactly like we can see here. In this example, this lab, for example, is from John Doe and followed by a semicolon, and then there is a free text right after. If my lab is something that I'm aware of, I would just go to the lab that I want to specify. And my exact alias would be something that's defined in the schemas for the curated set. So this curated set, and here is the list of accessions. As you can see, the pattern is specified for different labs in different ways, and it's a very long list. We can just copy the part that we are interested in. For example, I am from the Mike Cherry lab, so I will just exactly use this format, followed by colon, followed by any text that I like. So I'm going to say test submission sandbox or something like this. And this is an array, which means you can specify more than one aliases. However, it would be useful if you stick to one alias, which describes everything. But for some reason, if your lab has some important information that you would like to capture in more than one aliases, you're welcome to do so. I'll just say this alias. Now I need to know the lab and award. As I searched earlier, I know my lab is Michael Cherry, and I'm going to say find out the exact lab description. And for that, I'm going to exactly copy this string that's right after .org, and that is the specification I'll put right under the lab. Next, I would like to find out the award. So here we can see the award is linked to the lab. And again, like what we did for the previous case, we will copy everything after the .org and say, this is the award that I want to specify. Again, there is this other another property that is absolutely required, and it's a list of different enums. In this case, for example, I want to upload something which is of the file set type guide RNAs. And these are other optional properties. Now, these are optional, but it doesn't mean that you cannot submit them. And we would highly recommend to go through the other properties and submit them as needed, as is applicable for your case. Let's say for me, I want to say that the taxa was Homo sapiens. Once I have filled this information, I am now ready to submit. Make a note that you can have several of these levels filled out, but you need to change aliases for each case because they will clash with each other. And we can say this is sandbox 1, sandbox 2, etc. I mean, we are not going to do this right now because it will create unnecessary objects, which are just test submissions, but you can do it simultaneously as you go through. You can also use the same award and lab every time, so these properties don't change. The file set type, for example, in the first case, it was guide RNAs. In the second case, I wanted to submit something called transcriptome. In the third case, I wanted to submit something that was the genome, etc. And you can say this was mus musculus, and these two were Homo sapiens, for example. You can basically do this all simultaneously in one submission step, but for the example, I'm going to delete the other cases. Right here, the next part is to post new metadata to the portal. So once you hit this button, it will ask you whether you are sure you want to submit. So it will say here it found 3 rows with data, and they will ask, are you sure you want to post it to Sandbox? Once you are sure, you can hit OK, and the submission process will go through on its own. A success would indicate a 201 message on the response tab. So we can see this was submitted, all 3 of them were submitted, and this was successful. Another indication of success is once you see something populated in the accession and the UUID columns, which are automatically generated, as I said before. So this was a brief overview of how to submit a curated set. In the next step, we are going to submit a file object. So let's say this, we are going to rename it and say this is curated set, because I want to keep a tab of what I was doing here. I can make another tab, which could exactly say curated set 2, 3, whatever. If you wanted to do more tabs with the curated set, that's absolutely fine. But ideally, I would say having different tabs for different objects would be more ideal. So let's rename this as tabular file. In the case of tabular files, we will just hit set profile name, because authorization and everything was just a one-time requirement. And now we just need to focus on changing the profile names. Now we hit OK, and we will start getting all the columns that are properties within the tabular file object. Again, as we see, there are blue fonted colors here, which are the identifying properties, and then the red ones are all the required properties. Now, let's say I want to submit under the same award and lab. So 99% of the cases, this is going to remain the same for you every time, unless and until you start submitting something for a different lab, that this property may change, but award is absolutely going to stay the same. So you don't need to change this more often. You can just copy and paste. The alias is again going to follow the exact structure right here. So I'm just going to copy for now, but I need to change, of course, the letter part. So I'm going to say this is a test tabular file. Okay, let's say this. And yeah, aliases are identifying properties. So if for any reason another object on the portal exists, which has the exact same alias, which you are specifying right here, you will hit an error. For ease, what I can do is, if I want to be doubly sure, I can hit this button ID and try to find, oh, interestingly, there was something that's already called J. Michael Cherry test tabular file. So this is not going to work. I'll hit an error, but let's just try for fun. And I need to submit the MD5, some of the file that I want to upload. Let's say we are wanting to upload a file that's exactly this. So we're going to say MD5, this file, and then we get this exact information. Note that if you are using IGVF utils, you do not need to calculate MD5 sum. Even though it's an absolutely required property, the IGVF utils does the calculation for you. So you don't have to worry about calculating the MD5 sum. The file format, you're going to say, okay, this is a txt file because that's the file I have right here. And then I'm going to say the file set. Now the file set is the object where this file is going to reside. For example, we wanted to submit it within the first of our curated set. So in this case, we can use either the accession, the UUID, or the alias to refer to this object. In this example, let's just use the accession. So I'm going to just copy and paste the accession of the file set. You are welcome to use the aliases, absolutely no problem, but make sure that you don't use the parentheses or the quotations here, because in this case, the file set is a type string and it links to only one file set. It's not an array. So you cannot submit more than one file sets here. So you will absolutely not use the inverted quotes and also the square brackets. So that's the file set property. And then you have to say what is the content type. Now there are a list of things that we have listed here. For example, I know that these are guide RNA sequences in my case. So I'll hit this. But if you don't see something that exactly, not I wouldn't say exactly, or if it's not close enough to what you are trying to submit, you need to reach out to your wranglers and ask us to add that content type. Once we have added it, you can start using it, but it normally takes at least a week for us to add a content type that you would like to use. So you cannot start submitting stuff unless we have added it. And then we have this last column, which is the most crucial part. This is an absolutely unchangeable property, which means if you submit it as false, but the file was actually controlled access, you are in trouble. You cannot go back from false to make it true. And the reverse is true as well. So if you hit true, but your file was not actually controlled access, then there is no way we can go back, okay? So we have to be very careful in choosing what we input here. For my case, I know it is false, so I'm going to say false. So I'm already done with submitting all the absolutely required properties. I could say it was from assembly GRCH38, and then there will be some other important information that I might have and I might fill out. But for now, let's just proceed with this. And note that we are going to hit an error because this object already exists on the portal. So let's try to post something with that. Okay. Hit OK. Okay, so here we see we got an error, which means there is a conflict. And it sometimes is intuitive and it will tell you exactly what's wrong. Sometimes the error is a little bit strange and you might have to infer it to understand exactly what's going on. But for this case, it was very clear that there is a conflict with the keys and they cannot submit it. So now if I want to say, okay, I'll update it to something 2. So I'm just putting some additional information there, which will prevent it from clashing this exact key, and I can try. And there's also another additional step, which is called validate. It's useful. Before actually hitting that post button, if you want to make sure everything looks right, you can say validate. And if there is some error, it will also try to post the error in this column. So here it says validation success, which means everything looks good from the script perspective, and we are ready to proceed. We have recently found a small bug with the validation for file sets. We are in the process of fixing it, but hopefully that should go away soon. Anyways, for this file, we see it was validation success, and now we will hit post new metadata to the portal. And while we wait, it's going through the script and it will post. So once again, we can see it's a 201 success. Now, till here, we have only submitted the file metadata. There is an additional step that needs to be performed in order to upload the actual file. And for that, we will go and say upload local files sidebar. So we will start seeing another sidebar, and we will have two additional columns, as we can see right here. I'm going to hit it one more time. And yes, we have to come to a point where we see this. Okay, so now let's say I have this file in a folder somewhere. Okay, what I can do is I can directly upload the folder with both the files and tell it to upload only one of the files. Okay, so for example, I'm saying I want to upload test file.txt, and we are within this temp2. I know the MD5 sum that we calculated here was from a different file. And right now what I'm going to upload is a different file. Notice that this is going to cause an error in the future because the check files will totally reject that this MD5 sum is not at all matching, or it has to be 100% match. So there's no such percentage thing. So it does not match the MD5 sum of the uploaded file. But for the purpose of demonstration, I'm going to make that exemption, and I'm going to upload a wrong file, which is not identical to the MD5 sum. All I need to do is upload this particular folder right there. So imagine a case where you are trying to upload not just one file, but many files. So all of those files could reside in exactly the same folder. Say, for example, you had 5 files over here, and they all could reside right here. And I need to only upload the one level up folder in this case. And one thing that you will have to be careful about is the absolute path for each of them has to be unique. Otherwise, you will upload the same file again and again. And I'm going to say temp2 followed by slash followed by test file.txt. So that's temp2 test file.txt. I need to make sure it's test file. It's small fonts, so like this. Okay, and then we are going to drag and drop the folder, the temp2 folder right here, and we have to say initialize upload. We have to wait while it's reading. Okay, so somehow it says file not found. Okay, so there are times that this would happen. I'm going to re-upload it, re-attempt this. Again, it's not found. One of the things I have noticed is if for any reason I have specified the file format, which is not a .txt, and I'm trying to upload something that's a .txt, it would fail. But that's not what's happening right now. I'm going to try it one more time. And let's see. Let's wait. Okay, finally it did find it. And then once you see this file, you will notice that right now it says 0.0%. To start the upload process, you will hit start. And then once you see it's 100%, it means that the upload was successful and it's done. And here you will also see the symbol done, or the fonts done. Basically, that's how you upload a file using the Google Sheets. Okay. I think what we want to do is make sure that the file object is created on the sandbox, and we can look for. So as you see, I'm hitting the button ID when I know I'm using one of the identifying properties. And right here, we see that the file object was created. One thing you will notice is that for the time being, you will see upload status pending. When the upload status is pending, you can still go ahead and upload a completely new file from this uploads path, and it would be replaced in the existing file object. We would not recommend doing this unless and until you're absolutely sure that you want to resubmit the same file, but with some slight modification or something like this. Basically, it takes around 18 hours for this upload status to change from pending to either validated or invalidated or file not found. So there are three different statuses or upload statuses that it could go into. Now, 90% of the times, it's possible that it will go from upload status pending to validated. But there will be a few cases, for example, where you will hit an error. In this case, we are uploading a TXT file. And as I mentioned before, the MD5 sum that I specified here is not matching the MD5 sum of the file that I actually uploaded, because I uploaded a completely different file. So one of the errors it's going to throw is that these do not match. That's one of the errors. The other error that it will find is that TXT files are required to be gzipped. And if this is not gzipped, it will hit an error. And as you can see in my temp2 folder, this file is not gzipped. So check files is going to say this is a wrong file. You cannot upload a TXT file without gzipping it. In that case, you will come back to this spreadsheet. You will follow the exact same steps to upload the file, only the upload the file process. But before you do that, you need to talk to your Wrangler and tell them that you need to re-upload it because there was a validation error. And only after the status has been changed from invalidated or file not found to pending can you restart the upload process. Okay, that's it for this tutorial. Thank you.